Have you ever noticed something strange about yourself? Late at night, your mind suddenly becomes extremely ambitious. You start imagining a completely different life, a better one, a successful one. Maybe you picture yourself building a business, becoming financially free, creating something meaningful, or finally proving everyone wrong who underestimated you. In that moment, everything feels possible. Your brain fills with ideas, plans, vision, and for a few minutes, you genuinely believe that one day you're going to do something extraordinary. But then the next morning comes. Your alarm rings. You hit snooze. Then again, and somehow the same person who dreamed about conquering the world just a few hours ago can barely convince themselves to start the day. It feels like a contradiction. A person who dreams big but struggles to act. Ambitious in their mind, but lazy in their behavior. And if you've ever experienced this conflict inside yourself, you're not alone. Psychologists have actually studied this pattern, and what they discovered is fascinating. Because the truth is, people who appear lazy on the outside often have extremely active and ambitious minds on the inside. But when ambition lives only in the imagination and never turns into action, it creates one of the most dangerous psychological traps a person can fall into. Let me show you why. Imagine someone named Alex. Alex constantly thinks about success, not just a comfortable life, but something extraordinary. Alex imagines building something meaningful, becoming respected, maybe even wealthy. In Alex's mind, the future looks bright and full of possibilities. But when it's time to start working toward that future, something strange happens. Motivation disappears. Suddenly the brain whispers, maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And slowly, the person who once felt full of potential begins to feel stuck in the exact same place. Psychologists sometimes call this the ambition-action gap. It's the invisible distance between what you want and what you actually do. And for people with big dreams, that gap can feel enormous. But here's the part most people misunderstand. Your brain isn't lazy. Your brain is protective. Thousands of years ago, human survival depended on conserving energy. Every calorie mattered. If our ancestors wasted energy unnecessarily, they risked starvation. So the brain developed a simple rule. Avoid effort unless the reward is certain. The problem is that modern success rarely offers certainty. Starting a business is uncertain. Learning a difficult skill is uncertain. Creating something meaningful is uncertain. So, when your brain sees something that requires massive effort but offers no guaranteed outcome, it quietly pushes you toward easier activities. Scrolling, watching videos, checking social media, things that give instant rewards with almost no effort. And before you realize it, hours disappear. But ambition makes this psychological trap even more powerful. Because ambitious people rarely dream small. They imagine huge outcomes. A completely transformed life, massive success, financial freedom, recognition. But when the goal becomes enormous, the starting point suddenly feels terrifying. Imagine standing at the base of Mount Everest. Even the first step feels overwhelming. Your brain sees the entire mountain and decides it might be safer not to climb at all. So instead of action, the brain switches to something else. Thinking, planning, imagining. Highly ambitious people often spend hours mentally designing their future. They picture perfect strategies, perfect opportunities, and perfect versions of themselves. But there's a hidden psychological danger here. Thinking about success can feel almost as satisfying as actually making progress. Your brain releases a small amount of dopamine simply from imagining the future, which means your mind starts rewarding the fantasy instead of the effort. Psychologists call this analysis paralysis. You keep thinking about the perfect move until you never make a move at all. But there's an even deeper reason some ambitious people appear lazy. Fear. Not fear of failure, but fear of discovering your limits. If you truly believe you have incredible potential, there's a strange comfort in never fully testing it. Because as long as you haven't tried seriously, the dream stays alive. You can always tell yourself, I could do it if I really wanted to. But the moment you try with full effort, reality responds. Maybe you succeed, but maybe you don't. And if you fail after trying your hardest, it forces you to confront something painful. Maybe the dream was bigger than your current abilities, so the brain creates a quiet psychological defense. Dream big, but delay the attempt. In psychology, this behavior is known as self-handicapping. People unconsciously avoid effort to protect their identity. If they fail, they can always say they didn't try seriously. But if they tried fully and still failed, the result would feel much more personal. Yet here's the fascinating twist. Many highly successful thinkers once struggled with the exact same pattern. Creative minds generate ideas faster than they generate action. Their imagination runs ahead of their discipline. But once discipline finally catches up, something powerful happens. Momentum. Because motivation doesn't come before action. Motivation comes after progress begins. Your brain releases dopamine when it sees movement toward a goal. Even small progress triggers it. That's why the beginning always feels the hardest. But once movement starts, the brain slowly changes its prediction. This might actually work. Think about pushing a heavy car. At first, it barely moves. Every muscle strains. But once the wheels start rolling, it becomes easier to keep moving. Your mind works the same way. The first step feels impossible. The second step feels manageable. And the third step begins to feel natural. This is why many psychologists recommend starting extremely small, not massive effort, just movement. 1 sentence, 5 minutes, one tiny step. Because small action breaks the illusion that progress requires perfection, and suddenly the ambitious dreamer becomes something different. A moving person. Not perfect, not unstoppable, but moving. And movement changes everything. Because once the brain sees real progress, confidence replaces hesitation. Action replaces overthinking. And the person who once believed they were lazy begins to realize something surprising. They were never lazy. Yeah, they were overwhelmed by the size of their own ambitions. And maybe that's the real truth behind this psychology. People who are both lazy and ambitious often have minds full of vision, but habits that haven't yet learned how to support that vision. But habits can change. Your brain is incredibly adaptable. Every time you take action, even a small one, you strengthen the mental pathways that make action easier next time. Over time, discipline stops feeling like punishment. It becomes part of who you are. So if you recognize yourself in this story, if you've ever felt like someone with enormous potential trapped inside moments of procrastination, maybe nothing is wrong with you. Maybe your ambitions simply arrived before your systems did. And systems can be built. Because the difference between people who dream about success and people who eventually achieve it often comes down to one simple shift. They stop waiting for motivation and start moving anyway. Slowly, imperfectly, but consistently. And eventually, the life they once imagined late at night begins to appear in real life. So tell me something. Do you think people are truly lazy? Or are many people simply overwhelmed by the size of their dreams? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy understanding the psychology behind human behavior, consider subscribing. Because sometimes understanding your mind is the first step to changing your life.